guys, Prowl 1701 here, and today we're going to be talking about Season 24 of classic Doctor Who, the 7th Doctor's first season, and of all three of the McCoy box sets, Season 24 has my favorite art on the front. I love this art. I love that magenta color. I love that he's holding the spoons. Perfect choice, Lee Binding. Perfect choice. And I love the expression on his face. It's so Season 24. I love it. I absolutely love that art. Now, Season 24 is arguably the most underrated season of classic Doctor Who for me. Because Seasons 23 and 24 tend to be pointed at as the weakest seasons of classic Doctor Who. And while Season 23 is also my least favorite, I like Season 24. I think it's actually really good, with 3 out of its 4 stories being pretty strong. And even the one bad story having good points in it. I don't have to tell you which one that one is. If you watch my channel, you know. Now, this one continues the format started in Season 23 of when the seasons had shorter runs. You have 14 episodes, 14 half-hour episodes. It's the format that we would get, of course, for the rest of classic Doctor Who, having, for all of the McCoy era, having 2 4-parters and 2 3-parters. Sylvester McCoy is good in the role. Now, Sylvester McCoy, I feel like, is a little more limited as an actor than than most of the people who play the Doctor. But he's really good at the stuff he's good at. He's really good at. He just has a couple things he's a little limited in, kind of when he gets over the top mad. He's really good at that calm, manipulative Doctor bit. He has so many great scenes, but sometimes when he's going into that fake voice that he does, you guys know that fake voice that drives me crazy. It pulls me out of the scene, especially since I've heard Sylvester McCoy get loud. I know when he's yelling in real life what he sounds like, and it's not that. That fake voice he goes into just... But he's still really good as this Doctor. I like the 7th Doctor a lot. I think he's around midway on my list, maybe in the upper part. He's really good Doctor, really good Doctor. And even in Time in the Ronnie, I like him. He's a little more clownish, but you could chalk that up to post-regeneration stuff going on, and with the Ronnie injecting him with that thing to make the post-regeneration stuff even worse. I like how he's mixing his metaphors. I kind of wish he'd kept that. And I love that he plays the spoons, especially when he's playing the spoons on Kato Mar's chest. That's so hilarious. I wish I could play the spoons. If I ever met Sylvester McCoy, I'd want him to teach me how to play the spoons. Because he's just so good at that. I always find him so much fun to watch because he's just a little bundle of energy. I can see why he has the nickname the Human Bomb. And to realize that Sylvester McCoy was in his 40s when he took over the role, and to still have the kind of energy he has. Because I was always a very hyper person. But when I hit 40, I really started slowing down a lot. Up until then, I was always hyper. Had to take Ritalin when I was young and everything. Very like ADHD, they call it now. But I hit 40, I started slowing down. And this guy... It's really only been the past decade and a half that I've really seen him slow down. Because, I mean, even in behind-the-scenes stuff in the 2000s, dude was animated, super animated. So it's amazing that he managed to have the kind of energy he had for as long as he had it. And he's just all over the place in a good way. And then I really like... I'm not a big fan of Mel, actually. I'm not a big fan of Mel. That is one of the weaknesses for the season for me. I just don't get into Mel. It's not Bonnie Langford's fault. They just did not flesh her out at all. She really is a regression of a companion here, being more like Susan, more that stereotypical 50s, 60s almost, woman in distress type. She got a good scream, but she never was fleshed out well. We got so much better with Ace, and that's one thing I love about the end of the season with Dragonfire, is we do get Ace introduced, and Ace is Ace right off the bat. I mean, she's just wicked right off the bat. Sophie just nails this character. A character that's written well and performed well. I like Season 24 because I don't think people fully get Season 24. I think Season 24 has a very not so good reputation. One, because I think some people watched it when it originally aired, back when the people at the BBC were trying to get rid of the show anyway, and maybe they haven't watched it since, or else younger people do not catch some of the things going on. When you look at the actual subject matter of Season 24, it's pretty dark. I've talked about this before when I talked about Season 24. Season 24's biggest crime is that after the violence of seasons 21 and 22, they really wanted to take the show in a lighter tone. Much like what happens with Tom Baker's era, with the Hinchcliffe era being so dark and violent, and people complain, including Mary Whitehouse, of course, Waterhouse, whatever her name was, Whitehouse. And as a consequence of that, the Williams era had a directive to lighten it up a bit, to make it a little more fun, to tone down the violence. And a lot of people would argue that the Williams era is not as good as the Hinchcliffe era, though the Williams era is actually pretty solid in my opinion, and one of the, as at least one of the greatest Doctor Who stories of all time, and two actually, because Horror of Fang Rock's in it too, and City of Death being phenomenal stories. You have that kind of here. You had the kind of violent season 1 and 22, and so they're under a mandate to kind of do it lighter, and so the episodes in season 24 are shot lighter. Like, they're literally overlit and bright. And then the camera angles they used aren't intimidating at all, if that makes sense. It's shot in a very innocent way. I really don't know how to explain that better. But I read a review about season 24 recently, and it was something I read. There was one word they mentioned in it that sums it up perfectly. It's the word I think I've been looking for all the time. The undertones of season 24. And as soon as I read that, it went click, yes. Click, click, click. That's exactly the word I want. If you look at the undertones of season 24, what the story's actually about, the subject matter, it's dark. It was a review of Paradise Towers, actually. Good review of Paradise Towers. I mean, you look at even the subject matter in Time and the Ronnie. You're seeing someone, you saw a daughter get blown up and killed. The bit with the brain, the Ronnie's plans. Okay, that one maybe not quite so dark. You look at Paradise Towers, where you have cannibalism going on. You have people being dragged down waste disposal units by an arm that just grabs them and pulls them down. You have all of the yellow kings getting killed. You have the creature going hungry. The architect just eating, feeding. Just the idea of Paradise Towers, this place being haunted by its inventor who's unhinged. There's actually a lot of dark stuff going on in Paradise Towers. It's the way it's shot that makes it look more innocent and campy. Especially knowing behind the scenes what they wanted to do with it. Like, all of the security guards were supposed to be older, out-of-weight men because all of the healthy young men were off fighting. The fact that the little rule book was supposed to be like this thick, which would have made way more sense. The little thin rule book they hold is supposed to be like this massive, ridiculously thick book. Makes that work a little better. And then you have Delta and the Bannerman. You have an entire busload of people who get killed. I'm trying to remember what episode that is. Episode 2, episode 3. And they're in it a lot, and they almost didn't get killed. They wouldn't even have gotten killed if that doofus driver hadn't dropped the crystal and they had to do a new one. If he wasn't clumsy, they wouldn't have died. And it's just treated like, whoops, I'm clumsy. Play the laugh track because it's season 24. Where that's pretty dark. I remember the first time I watched Delta and the Bannerman, I saw the bus get killed, and I'm like, he's going to save them, right? He's going to pull like some time travel shenanigans and somehow save this busload of people, right? No. They're dead. They're just dead. And then, of course, Dragonfire. Dude's face melts off. Seriously, we're talking Raiders of the Lost Ark melts off. And some people paint season 24 as it's silly, campy, painted in rainbows and unicorns. Really? Dude's face melts off. And then just the character of Kane, who's ice cold, literally and figuratively. It's kind of a metaphor, I think. And the way he tricks people into his service with the coin. Oh, also great by Lady Stevens there, Patricia. Oh, Patricia. As someone who loves the Rocky Horror Picture Show, I love the Rocky Horror Picture Show. That's a Blu-ray I need to put on the watch list. I had it on VHS, and which I lost in a fire several years ago. Long story. I really want to get a Blu-ray of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. I need to put that on the wish list if anybody wants to see that, or anybody wants to see me do a review of it. This would be a weird channel to review that on, but I love the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Good soundtrack too. She's great in this. And then the bit with the sculpture melting. You almost feel sorry for him when the sculpture melts. And then to realize at the end of the story that he's held this hatred and bitterness toward his planet, just to realize the planet's long gone. And how he's wasted his time. That planet's destroyed. Now that's crushing soul-crushing. Then there's the fact you have one of the characters who sells his entire crew, and they all get turned into zombies. Basically zombies. You know, they have no mind anymore. Basically, you know, zombies that Kane can make do what he wants. You know, mindless minions, whatever you want to call them. Yeah, and that's the thing. But, you know, we let that slide because it's Glitz. And Glitz, Tony does such a good job as playing Glitz as the kind of lovable rogue, kind of the Han Solo type, that you just kind of overlook it. But if you actually think about it, Glitz is not exactly the best guy in the world. And I love Glitz. If you watch my channel, one of the reasons I love Season 24 is I get Glitz back. At least Season 23 is my least favorite season in Classic Who. But I get Glitz in 2 stories. It's getting points for that. Tony just plays that role so well. I would have loved to have had him back in the modern series before he passed. He plays it so well. I love Glitz. But still, Glitz isn't always a nice guy. What he does to his crew there, it's the thing that kind of happens and then you just kind of forget about it. It's like the Doctor, I mean, he sells his whole crew into slavery. And then at the end of the episode, the Doctor lets him take Mel with him. But we just gotta let it slide because it's Glitz. The lovable rogue Glitz. I want to write a song about that now. So there's actually some really dark subject matter. It has a really dark undertone that if this had been made during like season 21 or season 22 or during the Hinchcliffe era, it would have been executed in a much darker manner on screen. And I think these stories would get a little more credit than they do. Now, where were we? Oh, yes, season 24. Let's talk about these stories. Now, we start off with Time and the Ronnie, which, of course, is not one that is seen in the most favorable light. I actually enjoy Time and the Ronnie. Time and the Ronnie is another one that, knowing the behind-the-scenes stuff going on with it, I think helps you appreciate the fact that it came out as well as it did. This is another one, much like I talked about with Ultimate Foe, where Pip and Jane Baker really had a lot they had to do to get this one to work. Because this story was originally written for the Sixth Doctor. It was originally supposed to be in a forest. Then it was going to be the Sixth Doctor's, of course, regeneration story. They were going to try to give him a regeneration story. And, you know, with everything going on and with Colin just not coming back to film his regeneration, I can understand why this story went through all the stuff it did and why it's not looked the most favorably upon. Now, I do think, what if maybe they had just started the story with the Seventh Doctor as the Doctor? Like somebody mentioned in one of the behind-the-scenes things in Modern Who, when they were talking about regeneration, he goes, imagine what it had been like if you just opened the door and Sylvester McCoy had been standing there. That would have been an interesting idea, but we're talking about 1987, and there is no way they would have considered doing this without a regeneration. There's no way they would have just brought the Seventh Doctor in. They would have had to have shown a regeneration. I think it was really the TV movie that convinced them, okay, maybe when we reboot the show in 2005, we just start with the next Doctor, and then we can fill everything in with backstory later, which made good sense. Because I think some people think one of the TV movie's reasons for failing was, at least in the US, was that you introduce people to the Doctor. First thing he does is fall down, as they mentioned in that video too, and then he changes into someone else. I understand that issue. Going back to Time and the Ronnie, I think they handled the regeneration as best they could, considering Colin refused to come back. And I don't blame Colin, to be fair. I don't feel like they had a lot of options. So I feel like they pull it off pretty well. When I ranked the regenerations recently, this one actually made it fairly high up the list. It was about halfway up the list, higher than most people would have it. And you have to keep in mind that when he's rolled over, he's mid-regeneration. It's not like they roll him over, then he starts regeneration. They roll him over like halfway through the process, so it explains why his face looks a little different. And that little effect over his face works pretty well. It takes a second to center on his face properly, but it works pretty well, and it's effective enough for me. So I buy the regeneration, especially since the first time I saw it was when I was a kid. Totally bought it. Kato Mara's having a blast. Kato Mara looks so happy to be here. after being in the States and working on Dynasty for a year or two, I think she wanted a change of pace. I think she literally like told J&T, stick me in a quarry somewhere. And she just looks like she's having so much fun with this story. Like when she's slapping Sylvester McCoy. And then also, I love watching McCoy play the spoons. I love McCoy playing the spoons. I love McCoy playing the spoons. And he's even playing on Kato Mar's chest. That's so hilarious. Couldn't do that now. That's so hilarious. But Kato Mar looks like she's having fun. She's one of the reasons I like this story. The makeup on the aliens looks really good. The kind of indigenous people on that planet, the makeup on them looks good. I do believe that is that Ingrid? No, that's not Ingrid Pitt. That's Wanda, actually. Benedict Cumberbatch's mom playing the mother of that species in that, I believe. I believe that is Wanda's third appearance in Doctor Who, final appearance in Doctor Who. I think she's in a 60 story, a 70 story, and an 80 story. The makeup looks good. The Tetrats, or Tetrat, the Tetra Rats, whatever they're called, Tetra Bats, their outfits look really good. Their outfits, especially for classic Doctor Who, their outfits look good. I like the way the tongue can move, the way the eyes can move, the different eyes on. I really like their outfits. Some of the special effects look really good. The little balls that you get trapped in and spin into the side of mountains and blow up, that's a really impressive effect. Not all of the effects are good. The little bees in the room with the dome, those little bee effects are terrible. And then the opening shot when the TARDIS is getting shot by the lasers, I think that effect looks good for 1987. For 1987, I think that's an impressive opening. Has not aged well. But for the time, I think it works. But some of the other effects do work, and I enjoy the story. The whole story of trying to get all of the big brainy people into the one big brain, I like that. And then seeing the Ronnie kind of get her comeuppance at the end, I enjoy that as well. I like Time in the Ronnie. I think it's underrated. Then we move into Paradise Towers. I love Paradise Towers. This feels like a season 25 story. I don't know. Maybe it's because it's just more refined as a story. But I feel like season 25 works. Well, I feel like this story would have worked really well in season 25. I enjoyed this one. Just the nature of something going on in this apartment. Seeing people getting drug away by these cleaners with a foot sticking out. Which is, again, way more chilling and sinister than people seem to think, despite the fact these little machines don't look that intimidating. But if you look at them, they don't really have a weak spot either much. I mean, imagine, they don't look overly impressive, a lot like the War Machines from the War Machines. But if you're actually up against one of these things trying to kill you, how do you stop it? I saw that thing coming for me. The only advantage I have is speed. As long as I don't let it trap me and I can run, I'm going to run. I love the two old ladies, the cannibal ladies. I love them. They're hilarious. Just the actors playing them do kind of play it in a slightly camp way, and I love that. But the sinister undertone with them is really, really good. And then watching them get drugged down the garbage disposal. And the fact when the first one gets drugged down, the other one gets mad and is threatening to kill Mel. It starts to reveal just how sinister they really are. Even if, of course, you already know that by then. I do enjoy that. I actually like Richard as the head caretaker. I think he's really good. I think he's funny. Yeah, he definitely has some moments. I love the scene when one of the other guards kind of questions one of his orders, and Richard's just like, if I sat here and explained all of the rules you've just broken. I love that bit because there's this pause like the head caretaker cannot even fathom that somebody would have questioned the rule book. He just, there's a little bit where his jaw kind of works where he's, I love that. Like he's just so flummoxed and aghast that somebody would question that. I love that. I absolutely love it. I love the way the Seventh Doctor handles it. Like the bit when he reads in the book, they have to do this. And so they do it, and he just walks out the door while he escapes. I do wish the book would have been like this thick or something like it originally was. Like it's so full of ridiculous steps and nonsense that it's just ridiculously thick. I wish it had been like that. Pex is pretty neat as a character. Like, the acting is not very good for Pex. Like, it's very over the top. It's just bad acting. But I think that's done purposely. Because Pex is very much a child pretending to be an adult. It's like someone who grew up as a kid on 80s action movies, like, you know, Sylvester Stallone or Arnold Schwarzenegger, like The Running Man or Commando, which are great movies, but they do get a little silly sometimes. It's like somebody grew up thinking that's what an action hero is supposed to be like. And so Pex is trying to emulate that. And with that as my headcanon, it makes sense why Pex comes across the way he is. I'm Pex, you know. I because of that, I like that. It fits the character. The way I run that through my head. And then I like the Kangs. I like the fact the Kangs have their own way of speaking. Like, they have, you know, they don't speak in quite normal speech. They have their own slang. I like that. I love that. Much like in Carnival of Monsters. I like when another race kind of has their own slang. It just makes them feel, one, it makes them feel a little alien to me. And two, it just adds a little character to them, in my opinion. And I like the people playing the Kangs. I think they do really well. They're a lot of fun. And I like the fact the Kangs end up working together. That's pretty cool. I like how they set up the Great Architect. Hungry. It's just, it's frightening. It's scary. Now, Richard, once he becomes the Great Architect, I understand some people have some issues with that performance. Now, in my head canon, it's because the Great Architect hasn't had a body in a long time. So he's having to readjust being in a body, plus a body that's not his own body. And so he's having some problems adjusting. That being said, I still don't think I would have gone with the performance that way, especially with the silver face paint. I still think if I had been the director, I would have done something different with the performance. Again, I can make it work because I headcanon as the architect's having to adjust to the body. I can make it work in my mind, but I personally would not have asked Richard to do the performance that way. I can see where the criticism comes from. But Paradise Towers, as I mentioned earlier, definitely its biggest problem is I think that some people don't get the undertone of the story because, again, it's that season 24, you know, rainbow paint, brightly lit, and it's the thinnest coat of rainbow paint. The thinnest coat. The undertones are so strong in that. When you start looking at how dark the subject matter is in this story, this one more, I think, than any of the others for season 24, but really all of them to a degree. You're talking some scary stuff straight out of the Hinchcliffe era, straight out of season 1, 21 and 22. There's some dark stuff going on in this story. It's really, really good. And just McCoy in this one. You know, a lot of people think of either McCoy in his whole era or McCoy in season 24 as Time and the Ronnie McCoy. And that's not really the case. The only time McCoy is truly Time and the Ronnie McCoy is in Time and the Ronnie. Even by Paradise Towers, he's playing the role much more toned down, much more logical planning. I love his performance in this. It's actually very subdued. And I think he doesn't get enough credit for that. Now, next on the list is Delta and the Bannerman, which I don't care for Delta and the Bannerman. It's not all bad. Now, I crap on Delta and the Bannerman a lot, but there is some good stuff going on in Delta and the Bannerman. Let's talk about some of the good stuff. One I like, is it Ray? Is that her name? Riley Ray? The girl with the motorcycle and the black jacket. I can't remember. It's either Riley or Ray. I like her. And I know that she was a potential companion. They weren't sure if they were going to go with her or Ace at first. I like her. I think she's really good. I think she would have made a great companion. I think the actress playing her is very good. I'd love to see her come back maybe in the modern series, either as a different character or again as Riley, whatever her name is. I liked her character. I liked her performance. Her and the Doctor get on well. She's one of the bright spots of the story. The woman who is the alien woman who has the baby, she's good. She's good in this. I don't really care for the guy that falls in love with her, the one that makes himself alien to live with her. Nothing against the actor, I guess, but he just didn't do much for me. I love the beekeeper. I love the guy playing the beekeeper. I always like him. I've seen him in other stuff. I can't think of anything else, but I know I've seen him in other stuff because he just looked familiar to me. Every time I see him, I know I've seen him in other stuff. I just like him. He just plays that part so well. I think I tend to like him when he shows up and stuff, but he plays the beekeeper so well. So I got to give hats off to him. The guy playing the main villain is good too. It's like he's a little hammy with it, but a lot like Harrison Chase. It's that right kind. It's not over the top to where it feels like a parody or that it's eye-rolling. It's just that perfect level of slight camp that just nails it perfectly. that I actually really enjoy. The episode does have some good cliffhangers too, like when the doctor's like, maybe I went too far. Got some good cliffhangers. Some of the music is all right. I either like the 50s music and hate the incidental music, or like the incidental music and hate the 50s music, and I can never remember which one. So it's like half the music I like, half the music I hate. Also, I liked, is it Bruce is his name? I can't remember his name. The guy who runs the camp, the little camp they go to, the older guy with the glasses. Love that guy. He's great. I love how he's just there for all of it, like grabbing, I can't remember if he grabs a sword at one point. I forget what he does, but he's great. I like him a lot. So it's got some good characters in it. The story itself, the actual story, I don't really care for. I also don't really care for the green melted army men at the beginning and how they all look like that, but the one woman, their queen or whatever, looks human. I don't really care for the baby hatching from the weird egg and that little noise she makes. It's pivotal to the plot, but it's still very annoying. I don't like the outfits the villains wear. This was definitely filmed in the 80s. The Bannerman outfits, just, I can't take that seriously. The little place where they go and stay, the little retreat resort, honestly just looks like a rundown, broken down camp because they filmed it in a rundown, broken down camp, and it looks awful. Again, half the music I didn't really care for, and then the whole busload of people get killed for no reason. We have Ken Dodd there, which is fine. I don't really know Ken Dodd. I'm from the States, but I know it was a big deal they had him. I mean, he's funny enough in it, and then he gets killed, sadly. The two Americans that are there, they're there. What is it? Stubby K, I guess. They're there with their, though especially the younger one with his American accent. I don't really know why they're there, but they're there. I don't really like Delta. Maybe it's the story itself. Probably my least favorite McCoy story. I just don't get into it. And then we have Dragonfire, which I like. I enjoy Dragonfire. And McCoy is a little more sillier here because he's sliding around on the ice, I don't think him sliding on the ice is bad so much as no one else is doing it. He's the only one sliding with it, so it comes across as a little comical. I do like Dragonfire, though. It's a great introduction to Ace. And also we get to say goodbye to Mel. And again, I'm not a big Mel fan. We get Glitz back. I like Glitz. I always loved Tony as Glitz, as I talked about earlier in the video. And it's nice that I got to see Glitz with two different incarnations of the Doctor. I love that. Again, overlooking the whole what he did to his crew thing. And then the Doctor just lets Mel run off with him. I like the little alien creature they meet, which is obviously a rip on Aliens. And the actual design of the alien itself isn't bad by Classic Who standards. I do love the spin on the fact that the alien is friendly. It's actually not dangerous. It's actually on their side. I do like the little twist on that, to where the alien isn't really bad or a villain. That's pretty cool. I love the set designs for this. I love the set designs. I think the sets look really good in this story. Yeah, to be fair, the cliffhanger, that is a literal cliffhanger with him hanging from the umbrella, is terrible. Because they cut some of... I mean, if you know the behind-the-scenes stuff, and there's supposed to be a reason why he's hanging that makes sense, but the way it is on transmission just looks terrible. Just terrible. And then I like the guy playing Kane with Edward Peel or something like... I like him. He's good as Kane. And again, we have Patricia from the Rocky Horror Picture Show in it, and she's great. So we have a nice cast here. It's a good story. Great introduction for Ace. And we get to see a dude's face melt off. But tell me about how light and campy season 24 is. Dude's face melts off. So, yeah, I enjoyed 3 out of the 4 stories this season. If I was ranking them, Delta and the Bannerman at the bottom, which comes as a literal surprise to nobody. In third place, I would probably put Time and the Ronnie. Second place, Dragonfire. And my favorite's definitely Paradise Towers. Paradise Towers just feels a little more refined than the other scripts. It really does feel like a season 25 story. Like if season 24 was only 3 stories and season 25 had been 5 stories, somebody had told me that and I didn't know better, I'd believe it. It just feels... I don't know. It always reminds me of the Happiness Patrol in a way. I don't know why. Typically, if I think of one, I think of the other. Even though they actually are very different stories. But they always remind me of each other. Now, I do prefer probably Happiness Patrol slightly over Paradise Towers, but I love them both. They're both my two favorite stories of their respective seasons, because Happiness Patrol is my favorite season 25 story. But I really like Paradise Towers. It's a good season. It's an underappreciated season with a really dark undertone to it, with some really dark subject matter that, you know, if you just watch these stories and really pay attention, you can catch on to. And I like when Doctor Who deals with dark subject matter like that. I think it does it really, really well. So for me, it's an underrated gem and doesn't deserve the reputation it has. So season 24 of Classic Doctor Who. What do you think of it? Comment down below and let me know. Don't forget to click the like button and the subscribe button as well. I also have a Patreon if you would like to support me on that. There is a link to that down in the description below. I want to give a shout out to some of my top tier patrons: Colin Coney, Sam Venning, Finn Perkins, and Unknown289. I appreciate their support, as I do the support of all of my patrons. It's very much appreciated. I also have a P.O. box if there's anything you'd like to send me to look at and review. A link to my Amazon wish list is down there. A link to my Amazon UK wish list is also down there. I've updated those recently. Most importantly, thank you for watching.